Hello, Namaskar viewers. I am Sanjeev Pandya welcoming you to this week's edition of the Business Talk with AJ right here on ITV Gold. This weekly show brings you information about businesses, various businesses, different categories, and mainly where South Asians are in, what businesses they are in, and what are the pros and cons of these businesses. Because Mr. AJ Kumar of Sai CPA Services, who is a very well-known CPA, his firm is very well-known, a firm in New Jersey and as well as in USA. So based upon his experience and knowledge, when he files the tax returns, when he consults with the business owners, he gathers information and shares it with us that what does it take to start a certain business? What does it take to manage the certain business? What are the risks of running that business? What are the opportunities where you can succeed, and what are the things that you need to be careful so that way your business does not turn into a failure. So these are the things we cover in our weekly show. It's a business talk with AJ, brought to you by Sai CPA Services. As I mentioned, full-fledged professional accounting firm located in state of New Jersey with multiple locations, and they can assist you with your personal taxes, corporate taxes, bookkeeping matters, payroll matters, or even an IRS audit in case if you are in it. Then they can help you with any one of these things, and you can contact them at 908-380-6876 or visit saicpaservices.com. With that note, ladies and gentlemen, the gentleman you see on the other side of screen, that's Mr. AJ Kumar. Welcome to the show, sir.
Thank you, Sanjeev. Thank you for the kind introduction.
Sure, very well. I mean, of course, it's very well deserving and it's all true. So now this week, let's talk about, we have talked about certain audits, various audits, but we have never talked about Department of Labor audit. Department of Labor audit is a very, very crucial, very important audit, and there are various ways of various things for the Department of Labor to audit in your books. So give us some more insight in this Department of Labor audit.
Absolutely, Sanjeev. So as you rightly said, we have talked about audits. Everybody talks about audit in this country, and when people are talking about audits, they are typically talking about the income tax audit, the IRS audit. That's where most audits happen. That's where all the discussions on the internet, that's where all the talks are happening about income tax. Unless you specify, audit means income tax audit, audit means an IRS audit. Department of Labor audit has nothing to do with IRS. It's not about income, it's about labor, it's about your employees. So Department of Labor audits wouldn't happen for an employee, or if you don't have a business, this cannot happen to you. Department of Labor audits happens to small businesses typically, where they have employees, and a lot of these employees, especially if they are not documented, meaning they don't have proper social security numbers, or if they are not paid proper wages. Every state has a minimum wage. Federal government has a minimum wage requirement. If they are not given proper overtime, if they are not given proper work environment, all that's included in the labor audit, meaning well-being of the labor, well-being of the employees. Again, the labor audits are typically mostly governed by the state. If you remember, SUI, SDI, state unemployment insurance, state disability insurance are all state factor. When somebody loses a job, they don't go to federal government, they go to state government for the unemployment compensation. So a lot of these audits are related to the state audit. Not that the federal government cannot do labor audits, but those audits are extremely rare and typically happens for the large corporations, not for the smaller one. For a smaller corporation, typically the concern is, do you have documented people? Are you paying proper overtime? Are you providing the right working conditions? Does everybody has proper, you are not hiring minors in your type of work environment, you are providing a safe work environment, and those audits are related to labor audits, employee related issues.
Very interesting. All right, so these are the audits. Now let's say, what are the things to do prior to the audit, during the audit, and what are the things that you really don't want to do to trigger an audit?
Absolutely. So what you should be doing, you should maintain proper records. If you're hiring somebody, make sure you take copy of their driver license, copy of their social security number, copy of their green card, passports. So make sure they are legally here. They are legally allowed to work in this country, then make sure you have them sign certain contracts, certain document as how much salary they are supposed to be getting. Then you have some understanding in writing what they are expected to be doing, how many hours they are expected to be working. Then every day there has to be some time in, time out, especially for minimum wage employees. Unless you have the management job, executive job, where you are not tracking the hours. For most people, for the employees, where you have the minimum wages or where you are paying by the hours, you need to have a system tracking how many hours each person is working. And if somebody is working more than 8 hours in a day, do you have an overtime system? Meaning people are supposed to be getting 1.5 times of their regular salary if they have the overtime condition. So make sure you do it by the book. Somebody referred somebody and now they started working for you. You are taking an obligation. If something is to go wrong, if something is to happen to them, the system will come behind you, not behind that employee. It's your obligation to ensure that you have verified the document. You can't really say he said that he is legally here. You cannot say he said he is allowed to work. It's your obligation as an employer to verify, to ensure that the person is legally here in this country and is legally allowed to work.
Okay, so now, let's say, what really triggers an audit?
Well, several things. Mainly, the first thing, a disgruntled employee complaint. That's the main thing. Second thing, somebody else was getting audited and that sort of spilled over to your company. That happens too. Third, a lot of these labor departments have a quota that these many businesses have to be audited every year. So they have this sample picking up. It's not as common because they typically have more complaints than the sample allows them. But in theory, the department have their own quota, own statistics that in this area, in this market, in this industry, these many people have to be audited. So the audit can be triggered by anything. So once you get the audit request, you have to be calm, you have to look at the audit, have somebody who does the audit work for you, or if you are representing yourself, make sure you meticulously, thoroughly check the request and try to be as thorough as possible when giving this information out.
Okay, now, with this audit, the question comes to me, are they very expensive?
Well, it depends. Labor audits are less expensive than income tax audit. In the sense, labor audits do not take as long. Labor audits typically are in thousands of dollars, not in hundreds of thousands of dollars, where income tax audits can be anything. So labor audits are typically based on how much salary you were supposed to pay, how much did you pay. A lot of these labor audits are not because the state wants to collect some money for you. A lot of these labor audits are based on employee complaint. So a lot of these audits result into you pay this employee this much money and we'll call it a day, we'll close the audit. So even though the labor audits can be based on misclassification of the employees, meaning a 1099 employee was classified as W2 or vice versa, a W2 employee was classified as 1099, that potentially can trigger the audit. And in that case, you have some obligation, SUI, SDI payment to the state. But a lot of these audits are based on an employee complaint. So the audit result is going to be you pay this employee this much money and that's the end of the audit.
So what you're saying is the major part of this audit is because of employee complaint.
A lot of these audits.
Employee complaint in terms of what?
Employee complaints typically because they understood something, will pay you $15 an hour and then we will increase your salary in 3 months. Now they understood their salary will be increased by this amount, but there is nothing in writing. Both parties forgot about it. A lot of these audits are based on employer misunderstanding. If you keep everything black and white, if you keep everything clean, a lot of these audits are disgruntled employees. You fire somebody and this employee is not happy about it. And they go back to the system and say, hey, I wasn't paid. Especially if you're paying somebody in cash, you don't have a proof of the payment. In that case, this employee is complaining that I was never paid and you are stuck with it, that you were paying it, but you don't have a proof of payment. So a lot of these audits are based on disgruntled employee or employee-employer misunderstanding, but they are not very expensive. They are headache, It takes 3 to 6 months, but they're not very expensive.
But every single complaint should not trigger into an audit. Not every single employee is
Well,
right in their own things, right?
Absolutely. So you have a lot of complaints, and not every complaint will be looked at. But at the end of the day, this is what the department is supposed to be doing. This is what their main responsibility is, making sure people are paying a fair salary, nobody is taking advantage of anybody. So the department has to do certain audits.
So that means, let's say, person A complains about company XYZ, right? This is what happened. I didn't get paid. I was told raise. After 6 months, I didn't get raise. I didn't get my vacation pay, whatever it is. Now, Department of Labor looks at it and say, okay, maybe something looks suspicious and they want to go out and audit. Would they check that company's records? Have they filed the taxes? Have they filed the federal taxes, state taxes? Are they in a good standing, blah, blah, blah? Would they do that kind of due diligence before sending a letter out for the audit?
No, not before sending the letter out. If the complaint seems reasonable, then the state will send a letter requesting the business owner to provide last 3 years tax return, last 3 years bank statement, last 3 years payroll records, last 3 years timesheet. So they have this standard format where they have these 20 things that they request, but they don't do the due diligence before requesting that information.
Okay,
they will decide the audit. Once they have decided that the audit is legitimate, we should look into it. They will send this notice to the employer. A lot of these audits do not result into anything. So please understand, a lot of these audits will say, well, the complaint is not valid, or guys, this complaint is not valid, but the complaint is there, why don't you work together? So a lot of these audits are cost few $1,000s.
So basically, state is doing their job. State is basically trying to protect the employee's rights. If employee complains, and if there is a significant meaning to that complaint, state is trying to just protect that employee's right, because the employee has the right.
Especially if there are more than one complaint for the same employer. Or if there was another complaint for the same employer earlier. That can be a reason for the audit.
Okay, and normally, how long does it take for this kind of audit?
These audits typically take at least 3 months. It could be as long as 1 year. But again, they are much shorter, smaller than income tax audit. Income tax audit can take years to sort out. So this audit is not as bad. An income tax audit could cost hundreds of thousands of dollars. So this audit is not as bad, but an audit is an audit. It's stressful. It creates a situation when you have sleepless nights and you have to sort of fix certain things. But the intent behind the audit is always to fix, to improve. The intent is not to force you to close the shop. The intent is to make sure that you are doing the right thing or you're following the right processes around.
Okay, all right, very interesting. We're finding out a lot of good stuff about the audit matter, Department of Labor audit, and that's the topic of the day. With that note, we're going to take a short break. We'll be back with more information after this messages. Stay with us. Welcome back to the second half of the Business Talk with AJ. This week's topic is the audit. What audit? Department of Labor audit. That means state, wherever you're living, they have a department, and that's the labor audit department, and they go out and audit the companies within that state's parameter to protect employees' rights, because many times employee complain, and some of them could be a valid complaint. So the state looks into it and then goes out there for audit. That is exactly what we are discussing, and AJ is giving us insight of that matter. Once again, the show is brought to you by Sai CPA Services, a full-fledged professional accounting firm for all your tax matters, all your business matters, virtual CEO, CFO matter, bookkeeping matter. They can certainly help you out, and all you need to do, just give them one phone call, 908-380-6876. Their experienced and knowledgeable CPAs on hand will guide you and assist you for any matter, and you can visit scicpaservices.com for more information. All right, now move on to the Department of Labor audit. Let's go into the 1099, because sometimes, if company has many employees just on 1099, obviously somebody would look into it. Why is 1099? Why are they not on a payroll for W-2, even though they're eligible to it? So what do you have to say about that?
You're 100% right. And truth is, 1099 versus W-2 is one of the main area for these labor audits. Say, look at the trucking companies. All these independent operators, truck owners, they are typically on 1099, but they have only one job. They take the load from the brokerage company, and the brokerage company is issuing a 1099 to these individuals, which is not legally correct. And that's where the labor audits are happening. If you look at the newspaper industry, all these delivery people are typically on 1099, which is technically not right. So a lot of these labor audits happens because somebody is issuing a 1099 to an individual where this individual was supposed to be on W2, on the payroll. Now the criteria is, and people ask us, before I give you the criteria, people ask us, should I keep this person on 1099 or should I keep this person on W2? I said, that's not your option. You don't decide that.
Really?
Based on the situation, the system is telling you if this person should be on 1099 or W2. This is not optional for a small business owner or an individual to be, I want to be on 10. This is not how it works. Depending on if the tools are provided by the business. Let's say you go to the office, the laptop is provided by the office. You're not bringing your own laptop. If the business is deciding the set hours, you're supposed to work for me 9 to 5. If the business is providing you training, if the business is telling you that you have to perform the job, let's say a plumber, if you have an issue, plumbing issue, the plumber comes to your home, fixes the plumbing. You don't decide which plumber going to come. You call the plumbing company, they can send anybody. You don't give them the material, here is the pump. They bring in their tool. You don't train them. You don't tell them, oh, you have to come at 9. I mean, they will tell you that I'll come between 9 to 2 and there is a mutual understanding, but it's not something that you're expecting every day, every week. You're not training them, you're not giving them the tools, they're not working set hours. You are not deciding who is to be performing the service. Anybody can be performing the service. So those are the criteria that we look at if this person at a holistic way looks as an employee or as a 1099.
But then I have a question. What if an employee who is eligible for payroll and W2, what an employee wants to be on 1099?
That's what I'm saying.
Oh.
It's not up to the employee or the employer to decide that I want to be 1099. You can have business to business relationship. If an employee truly wants to be on 1099, what should they do? They should create their own company.
Oh.
Now the company has a contract with another company and this employee should be on the payroll of his own company. At the end of the day, the payroll has to be there. The payroll must be there.
Okay.
If you want to be on 1099, you create your S corporation, your C corporation, whatever company you choose to create, you have a corp to corp relationship with the business. That business pays your corporation and you are on the payroll for your corporation. But at the end of the day, there has to be a payroll transaction if it seems like an employee relationship.
Okay. So then in that case, let's say if a boss is confused and it's a new corporation and if it's confused whether to have their employee on 1099 or the payroll, they can contact their CPA and get their advice.
Absolutely. Most CPAs will be happy to help and guide the businesses in the right direction and hear the fact patterns to decide if this seems like a 1099 situation or a W2 situation.
All right. So either way, how is it related to the Department of Labor audit? 1099
well,
or
absolutely.
payroll?
I'm glad you asked. So when you have somebody on W2, as a part of running the W2, as a part of running the salary, there are certain taxes they call SUI, state unemployment taxes, state disability, and family leave insurance. There are 3 different types of taxes that are deducted. Some portion is paid by the employer, some portion is paid by the employee. These taxes are deducted out of the payroll and are paid to the state every month. If you start paying somebody on 1099, then state loses those SUI, SDI and FLI. These 3 types of taxes are not paid when somebody is on 1099. So if this person loses the job, they still go to the state looking for unemployment and the state has to give them unemployment. But if everybody starts putting themselves on 1099, then nobody is funding the SUI, State Unemployment Insurance Fund.
Okay.
In that case, how would the state be able to pay the money? That's why state goes out of their way to scrutinize if this person should be on 1099 or W2. And if there is any doubt, state will prefer the person to be on W2 as opposed to 1099.
Interesting. Now, let's say when the audit, audit knocks on a door at the company, can company refuse to show them the books?
Well, they can and they cannot. I mean, they can say that we don't have the books right now, or I'm not the right person, or I'll have to work with my CPA, but they cannot refuse forever. They can say that I'm not sure, I understand what needs to be done, they will take the information, but within n number of days, and if you say the auditor is asking you to provide the information in 2 weeks, and you think you will need more than 2 weeks, you make a request to them that I will need 4 weeks, but you can't refuse it forever. You can buy some extra time, you can have your CPA work with you, buy some extra time, but eventually you have to provide the details.
Okay, so eventually you have to provide the dates. All right, and the penalty, it depends upon, whatever the audit result comes out, right?
Absolutely. So penalties will depend on the outstanding amount, depending on how many faults they find. Let's say, for example, if you are not maintaining the timesheet for any employee, that's a different problem. But if you don't have the WR30 report, that's another issue. So every single fault, they will have a complete list. They will have about 40 items over there. Every single fault will have a different type of penalty around it. They will try to add it up as what the penalty is, and they will add.
So then what if HR manager disagrees with auditor's findings and completely disagrees in terms of penalty or findings or whatever? What is that employer's next step?
Well, they can always request a meeting with the auditor's manager. But these auditors do these things every day.
Okay.
So a lot of times, if you believe that the auditor's findings are not right, you want to have a professional opinion. You want to work with an accountant, a CPA who has done these type of audits in the past, to seek their opinion as what they think the case is. Are they agreeing with your opinion? If they agree with your opinion, have them represent you. If they think your opinion is not as strong, then you have to sort of look at it in a different perspective.
All right, so basically auditor would ask for all the documents, payroll documents, record keeping documents, 1099s and all the stuff like that. So the company must have somebody keeping this in the records, and especially if company is anywhere from 10 to 15 plus employees, correct?
Well, right. I mean, it could be as low as one employee. Employee is an employee. You had one employee, then you fired this employee, and the employee is complaining that he was fired or she was fired for no reason. Or even worse, that there was some biases around it, some age factor, some sex factor, or whatever the situation was. So it could be as small as one employee. Typically, they wouldn't really do the audit for owner-operator, meaning, let's say if I own the company and I'm the only employee for my own company, they typically don't touch those type of companies. But
because nobody's going to complain about that.
Well, in theory, the complaint over there is that you are running a very small payroll for yourself. So what a lot of people do, a lot of doctors, they will make $200,000 and they are running a payroll for $10,000 for the whole year, $1,000 a month, $800 a month. So the SUI, SDI, FLI amount depend on the amount of payroll. So if you are running an absurd low payroll for yourself, the state can still question that in your capacity, a person with your caliber, a person making $200,000, a doctor should be making a reasonable salary. It can't be making $1,000 a month.
Okay. One of the last questions, family leave and medical leave, are they, those things, gray areas where audit can occur?
100%. Audit can occur with any of these family leave or disability leave. You have to make sure that you understand the laws. A lot of these audits get triggered with the minimum wages, Sanjeevji, because when we file the quarterly report, we are supposed to tell them the wages. So the minimum wage in New Jersey is $15.13. The federal minimum wage is $7.25. A lot of people don't know. It changes every year. So if you are paying somebody $600 and you are showing that this person is working full time, so you are triggering an audit. At $600 divided by 40 is $15. It means it's less than minimum wages. So you have to be careful if anybody is getting less than $600 in that sense, then, and the person is working full-time, not part-time, it can potentially trigger an audit in New Jersey because they look at these reports and they the system, the software can back calculate these reports, and if they see multiple employees making minimum wages, less than minimum wages, that can potentially trigger an audit as well.
All right, very, very interesting. Okay, now in the end, obviously, you have touched upon this audit issue and you've given us a lot of information that was going to be helpful for the employers and employees who are part of our viewers on ITV Gold. Now, one of the last questions, not question, but the issue that I really want to bring it up, that we are in end of September now. October 15th is just around the corner, and that is the tax deadline for anybody who have filed their extension for the personal tax returns, correct?
Absolutely.
So October 15 is a deadline, must do that. If somebody did not file an extension, AJ, and if they come rushing to Science CPA Services offices, no extension was filed, but realize I need to file my personal tax return, can that happen?
It does happen. It does happen. A lot of times, what's more common is they tried to file an extension, it was never filed. A lot of people uses these online softwares to file the extension. A lot of time not knowing any better, they tried it, but it never went through. So we have a lot of cases where people come in, I think my extension was not filed, I got a notice from the IRS, from the state, the tax is not filed, the extension is not filed, can you help us? It happens all the time.
All right, very good. Okay, once again, ladies and gentlemen, Science CPA Services for all your accounting and tax matter needs. You can give them a call at 908-380-6876 or visit sciencecpaservices.com. With that note, we come to an end of this week's episode about Department of Labor Audit as part of the Business Talk with AJ show. AJ, thank you so very much for your time and for your inputs. I am Sanjeev Pandya, wishing you all happy and smiley days ahead. Until we meet again, same place, same time. So long.